Hi there, it's Tori and I will guide you through your yoga practice today. I thought that we'd do something slightly differently today and we'd go through a yin practice. So yin yoga is a very different practice. It's a lot slower practice, but it gets more into the flexibility into our body. It gets deeper in towards the connective tissues, so more into our ligaments and in towards our tendons. Whereas the yang part of yoga that we have been working into gets more in towards the skeletal, the kind of like the fleshy muscles. It creates more oxygen into them, it creates more kind of strength and flexibility into those muscles. But today's class is going to be more into getting into the deeper kind of like connective tissue, the fascia. A couple of things to note before we start the practice is that I want you to move really slowly throughout the practice. We'll hold poses for about 3 to 4 minutes and it'll be all seated. So if you have a yoga block or a thick book as a prop can be really helpful. Another one, I have a yoga bolster here, but if you have anything like a big pillow from your bed or from the sofa, and just using that can be really helpful to get into some positions as well. This is a practice that kind of like, it's a very slow practice. It's about shutting down the mind. I'll talk through the theory as we go through it, but what I'd like to do is just start with our seated breath and then we'll work in towards the practice. So just coming in towards a comfortable seated position, whether that's cross-legged or kneeling. If you want to sit onto your bolster or onto your block, feel free to do so. And we're just going to start by giving ourselves a couple of moments just to arrive onto the mat. When we arrive onto the mat, we're just giving ourselves the space, a mental agreement that we're going to give ourselves the next 45 minutes to an hour to our yoga practice. We're just starting to settle the body and settle the mind. And just starting to check in with how we physically feel. So whether it's hard and fast, whether that's slow and steady, whether that's the breath or whether it's the mind. The yin practice allows us to start to observe the body in a very different way. So we're just going to start to come into a little bit of positive breath. So coming with me with the breath, following the cues. If there's any issues in towards losing the breath or finding it hard to hold, just come into your general rhythm and just start to note the counting. Otherwise, if we can, work with the breath. Just starting to feel the breath coming in and out through the nose. We're going to start to inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Last round. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then slowly just coming back into your own breath and into your own rhythm. And just starting to note how you feel, whether you feel a little bit calmer, a little bit more steady. So we're going to slowly, just gently opening up the eyes, and we're going to come in towards our first pose for this practice. We're going to come into a wide-legged child's pose. So we're just going to come in towards the back of the mat. We're going to take the legs out wide, toes together at the back of the mat. Now we have options today, whether you want to just come down in towards your child's pose. The forehead comes down and the hands are out in front. And just gently feeling open in towards the hips. Or whether you want to come in towards a supported child's pose, which sometimes can be a little bit more comfortable, and coming down on towards a bolster or the pillow, if you've got a pillow, maybe wrapping up, or a blanket, and just gently taking the chest down on towards the pillow. So we have options here. We're going to hold here for 3 minutes. So just slowly coming down, we just melt down on towards the pose, whichever direction we're in, and just starting to surrender. So maybe in our yin practice, we start to work with the lunar phases of our body, the feminine, and we start to close down the eyes and settle onto the mat. Now with our yin practice, there's a place where we go to, we start to close the eyes and we start to find a reset into the body. Now, we might find that with our practice, our day-to-day lives are all about achieving and about hitting goals. When we tap into our yin practice, we start to settle the body, but we also try and work into settling the mind. And what we find is that we hold a position for a period of time. Our mind might be telling us to move, or that we have other things to do and get on with throughout the day. But really what we're doing is starting to deregulate the body and deregulate into the mind. There'll be a part of time throughout the yin, throughout holding this pose, that the body will start to give in and start to relax into a space of being. And that's when the stretch starts to come in towards the ligaments and in towards the body. We can actually feel the kind of edge of the pose, where we almost feel that we can go deeper, or that gravity is working its magic. As if the body just suddenly melts in towards a space that's a little bit deeper than we've been holding into. Just starting to feel the practice, start to feel the head just get a little bit heavier. About 30 seconds left into this pose. So really just feeling those hips starting to open. Feel the weight of the chest and the forehead maybe down to the ground or to the side of the pillow. Just starting to feel where you are in the body. Perfect. So we want to move slowly out of the pose, so just moving the head up and just gently walking the hands back in towards us. So remembering that we're working deep in towards the fascia, into the connective tissue and into the ligaments. So we want to move very slowly out of the poses. We're going to gently come down onto our bottom. We're going to come in towards our second pose, which is going to be working in towards our hips, but slightly differently. So we're going to come in towards a forward fold, removing the bolster or the pillow, whichever you have, and just taking the legs together. So we're going to take the soles of the feet together. We're going to come in towards a forward fold. So we're going to take a lovely big inhale. We're going to lift ourselves, just gently pulling ourselves up. And then slowly we're just going to fold forward. So again, I'll do this forward and I'll turn towards the side so you can see. I want to fold myself forward. It might be that I need to use a block. And just using the block to place it onto my forehead, just to give myself a bit of support. And the hands come forward. We're looking for an opening in towards the inside of the hips and in towards the thighs. It might be that you want to place the bolster or your pillow or your blanket just in front of you, and just giving yourself a forward fold just to melt down in towards that space. So wherever you are, we're going to hold the pose. We're going to hold it for 3 to 4 minutes. So again, it might be that you want to face this way, taking the bolster or the brick. Doesn't matter whether the feet are close towards the body or further away. We just melt ourselves down. We start to feel a release in towards the back of the body. If we can, we release the hands next to us, palms face up. Again, if you want to, just using a couple of props. Again, it doesn't have to be a yoga block. It could be whatever you feel like using. It's just got a little bit of support into it. This butterfly pose is great for opening in towards the groin and towards the hips. It's also opening in towards the lower back. So maybe it might be that you want to just place your forehead down so you're feeling the stretch into the back of the body. With the yin practice, I use an analogy of the Goldilocks and the three bears. So where the bears are eating their porridge and one porridge is too cold and one porridge is too hot, and then you've got the third which is just about right, and that's where we want to be with our yin practice. We want to feel a subtle stretch into the body because we're holding for 3 to 5 minutes. We find that we can be into a pose. And if we go too deeply, because we're holding for a period of time, gravity is going to work its magic. It's then going to find that we hold a little bit too hard. And we're going to have to pull ourselves out of the pose and release ourselves. But equally, if we don't go into the pose and we don't feel the stretch, then we're not doing anything for the body. Therefore, if we come into a pose and we find it just right, so it might be, it takes us a moment or two just to settle in towards the body, settle in towards the space that we're feeling, and then we get towards that edge, that medium porridge, that's just about right. Again, as this is a practice that's nice to release into the body, you might find that closing down the eyes enables us to stop looking to the outside for hints and things to do that we feel we might need to get done while we're practicing at home, like the washing or the dishwasher, or by turning our gaze inward we're able to settle into the body. So if you want to go deeper, maybe you want to remove whatever's holding the head up. You might want to remove the bolster a little further away so you start to feel a stretch deeper into the back of the neck. Again, just knowing that wherever you are into your practice, we're starting to feel the sensations into the body. Starting to feel the relax through the muscles and into the joints. And just feeling that stretch just a little bit deeper. So we've got 1 more minute into this pose. So just feeling in towards those hips. Maybe it's into the lumbar spine. Maybe it's into the neck. And just breathing softly in towards these spaces. Perfect. So we're just going to start to move ourselves out of the pose. We're going to walk the hands back in towards us. We're going to keep the head where it is. And just gently bring ourselves in towards our seated. So we're going to bring the head up as last and just release out through the body and through the spine. We're going to gently remove whatever we have onto our feet into that forward fold. We're going to come and just windscreen wipe the legs from side to side. We're going to take the hands behind us. And we're just going to gently take the legs out wide so the feet are on either side of the mat. And just gently windscreen wipe the legs from side to side. So it's almost as if we're moving through treacle. Kind of that really slow, deliberate movements, feeling that space. As well, when we're leaning back onto the arms, maybe you want to bend into the arms and feel a nice stretch opening into the collarbones as we've been forward folding and rounding into the back. Just working into the space however it feels and however you want to. And then gently we're just going to take the legs out in front of us, just taking them wide. And just holding into a rebound, so we're just letting the toes fall out towards the side. And weight is in towards the back of the body. And it's at this space that you might start to feel sensations run through the body. And our yin practice works deeply in towards the meridians, in towards our space. So the meridians are deeply linked with traditional Chinese medicine, which I will talk as we go through in towards deeper into the practice. So we're going to come in towards a wide leg forward fold. So we're working deeply in towards the hips today and in towards the legs. So really kind of opening in towards the back of the body. So coming into a wide leg forward fold, you can stay facing forward onto the mat. In our yin practice, we always keep the feet active. But today in our yin practice, we're going to release the legs. So maybe just giving our legs just a little bit of a shake from side to side, just getting a release. And then we're going to fold ourselves forward, but we're going to do it slightly differently. We're going to just tuck the chin in and we're going to start to roll forward. So we feel a stretch into the body. So it might be that we take the hands down towards the ground. It might be that we want to have a block underneath the elbows, or into a box, our Amazon box, whatever it is that we've got, and we're just holding steady. Tucking in towards the chin. Maybe coming down further, where we want to be getting a stretch is towards the inside of the thighs. So we're coming in towards the adductors and feeling that stretch. Gazing towards the pelvis. If it's available to you, just let the head dangle down towards the ground, because we get a nice deep stretch in towards the body and in towards the spine. However, if it's too much, feel free to take your hands underneath the forehead and just give a gentle support in towards the head. So again, we're going to be holding in towards this pose for a good 3 to 4 minutes. You might find with our yin practice, as we're moving slower, that you might want to have some warm socks on or a jumper. Or maybe using a blanket just to place over to the body as we fold. Now, as I was talking about the traditional Chinese medicine and the meridian lines, so the meridian lines are better known in the Western world as acupuncture lines. There are 12 main meridian lines that run through the body. And they usually run in pairs. And the reason why they run in pairs is that we have the yin and we have the yang. And when we pull ourselves out of the pose, it might be that we feel those meridian lines, which are basically rivers of qi that run through the body. Wherever you are, you're doing well, and just holding in towards the practice. Feeling that deep stretch in towards the inner thighs and in towards the back. So it's thought with our yin practice, with the theory behind the meridian lines, is that if we have blockages of energy within the body or any stagnant energy, it can create illness, but it can also manifest into chronic illnesses. Whereas I say illness is in, we might get stuffy nose, we might get sore throat. And through our yin practice, we're able to work in towards the meridian lines that we may not be able to work into in any other way other than simply having acupuncture. So these energy lines, we can feel the energy move through the body as we pull ourselves out of the pose. And we feel those rushes of sensations, which are the stretches into the body, but also in towards the release, into the spine, and in towards the energy running through us. We're just going to slowly bring ourselves back in towards our seated. So using the hands wherever we are, and just bringing ourselves back in seated, working through that trika, but also moving so slowly as we come up. If we have any issues in towards the lumbar spine, then just bring ourselves into windscreen wiping the legs. Just taking ourselves slowly in towards that wide leg stance, feet out wide, and just gently moving ourselves. Just giving ourselves a little bit of a sway from side to side. And this time, if you want to come into a release, into a rebound, feel free to just take the feet wide, knock the knees together so they're leaning in towards each other, and we find a release as we lay down onto the back. As we lay onto the back, we might find that space in between the spine. And if you want to, taking the arms out wide and just opening in towards the chest. So we just hold here for 30 seconds or so and just gently feeling those sensations start to pitter out through the body. Again, keeping the eyes closed if you want to, and just feeling a release into the body, into the spine. Perfect. So we're going to gently bring ourselves back into seated. So we're just going to use our elbows. Bring ourselves, if we can, onto our elbows, onto the hands, and just gently bring ourselves back up into seated. So we're going to come in towards a deer pose. So our deer pose, we come in towards the side of the mat. And we take our right leg down and we bend in towards our legs. So we have almost as if we have our right leg, it's parallel towards the front. Doesn't matter if our hips are lifted to the side. We want our left leg towards the back. If we want to place it in towards the leg, that's totally fine. If you want to place it a little bit further away, that's equally fine. We're just kind of looking for an openness in towards the front of the hip on the left. And what we're going to do is we can either be more yang into this pose if you want to, or if you want to become a little bit more yin. So a yang practice would be where we take our left hand towards our right knee. Our right hand comes behind us. We inhale and we gently just take the gaze behind us. So we've got a gentle twist through the spine as we gaze down towards the ground. So this is our yin, and we're feeling the stretch in towards the front. If you want to be more yang, then maybe getting your pillow or your blanket and just melting yourself down towards the ground. An option to either have the face forward or to the face behind you. If you have the face behind you, you feel a slightly more of a stretch in towards the back of the body, around the top of the pelvis and in towards the back of the spine. And again, we just want to melt down in towards the pose. And just hold here for 3 minutes. And just find ourselves in towards that relaxed state. Equally, as we come into the pose, it might be that we want to go deeper. And going deeper might be wanting to get deeper in towards into the floor. Lengthen the arms a little bit further out. And just feeling that stretch around the body, around the hips. Now yin is just the same as our yang practice, in that it doesn't matter what we look like. But it's how we feel when we get off the mat. It's getting in towards those spaces. Breathing into the body and feeling the changes that happen throughout the process. As we come about halfway into the pose, it might be that you want to go a little bit deeper. So maybe, like I say, just walking the hands a bit further away. Maybe it's releasing the bolster or the blanket underneath you and just taking the head down towards the ground as we feel that stretch just a little bit deeper into the body. We find that our monkey mind wants to tell us to move. We've got other things to do. But it's the ability to shut off the monkey mind and start to tap in towards observing the body. Perfect. So we're going to slowly start to bring ourselves out of the pose. So we're just going to walk the hands back in towards us, keeping the gaze down to the ground or closing the eyes. And just feel the sensations as we come up and out of the pose. So we're going to come to face the back of the mat if we are, and just gently bring ourselves into that rebound of hands behind the body, and just gently windscreen wiping the legs from side to side and just releasing out through the spine. And just really taking a moment to observe any spaces that we're finding into the body. Maybe we've got that space in towards one side of the body, into the back of the body, and maybe we feel tight in towards the other. Maybe we're stretched into spaces that we haven't come to before. So gently just taking the legs out towards the front. And again, if you want to, just taking yourself down towards the ground. Doesn't matter if we have our props in the way, we're just gently releasing through the spine. If we take the palms up towards the sky, the shoulder blades just gently melt down into the ground behind us. We feel that openness in towards the heart and into the hips. Just taking a couple more breaths here. Before we slowly move in towards the next part of the practice. So we're going to just take our elbows down, walking the hands back in towards us, and we're coming back in towards the other side. So it might be that you just want to face forward or moving around the mat. So again, we want to have the left leg so it's in front of the body and it's straight across the front. So we want to find the stretching towards the right side of the body this time. Gently and slowly moving whatever props you have and coming in towards the other side. So again, whichever practice you came into, if you're working in towards the into the yang practice, we take the right hand towards the left knee and we just gently gaze across the back. So we find the twist in towards the abdominals, in towards the spine. We just gently gaze down towards the ground. If you want to come into more of a yin practice, then again, as mentioned, we slowly just come in towards walking the hands away from us, down on towards the pillow that we have or onto a block. And we just gently rest the chest down towards the ground. And then we may want to take the gaze away from us so we really get that twist into the body. Or it may be that we want to face forward and we just find that release in towards the spine. Hands come to wherever's comfortable for you. And if you want to, we take the hands further away. As I mentioned in towards the monkey mind that we have, the monkey mind is more about slowing down the to-do list or the need to move. So what we might find is as we come to settle onto our mat for our yin, the body might start to, that hair that's touching or scraping onto the nose and wanting to itch, maybe we've got an itch on the back of the neck, is using the power to override the mind and work out what exactly it is that we're wanting to do. Do we really need to itch that, or is it just the mind feeling a sensation and asking us to move? So I invite you through the yin practice to slowly, not to give in, but really to work out whether that movement is necessary, and whether the movement is more about creating movement in the mind rather than allowing us to release. So we're coming into about halfway into the pose. Maybe look at going deeper if you want to. and just experimenting with the body. So for me, it felt nicer to move the knee, my right knee further away, so I get a stretch in towards the top of my pelvis. For you, it might be moving the hands further away from you. Again, like it was for me on the other side, it might be moving the bolster further away. And just feeling that release through the body and through the spine as I melt myself down gently into the next part of the pose. Just gently coming into wherever's comfortable for you. Got about 1 more minute here. Seeing whether you can let that mind shut off and gently relax in towards your space. So wherever you are, we're going to start to walk the hands slowly back in towards us. Gently lifting ourselves up and just coming to face towards the front of the mat, wherever the legs are, and coming into that rebound pose, so just releasing out through the legs as the legs are wide, and we just gently sway from side to side. Again, any issues into the lumbar spine, we take the knees together, we just melt ourselves down in towards the mat. So again, if the bolster's in there underneath the head, that's totally fine, or if you're melting all the way down to the ground. Palms come wide with the hands facing upwards, just enables us to release the shoulder blades and open the heart. Slowly and carefully just taking the hands back down next to you, using the shoulders, using the elbows and the hands, just walking ourselves back into seated. So the next pose we're going to come into is going to be our reclined butterfly. So where we started in our practice leaning forward, we're going to take the bolster, or if you want to, if you have your pillow, or maybe you have the block and you want to place the block just between your shoulder blades and just laying down onto the ground. Equally, any issues in towards opening up the legs in this pose, maybe taking a pillow either side and just placing it underneath the hips. Just giving yourself a gentle release. Doesn't matter how close the feet are towards the hips. We're going to take the bolster towards the back of the body and just gently we're going to move ourselves down onto the bolster, so we're opening in towards the heart. So for me, this bolster is quite high and I prefer to have it further away from the body so I don't have any issues in towards my lumbar spine arching up into a square kind of feeling. So we take the shoulders down, arms open wide, and we're down in towards the back. So it's a gentle arc in towards the back that we want to have to open the heart. But sometimes it can be a little bit heavy in towards the hips. So making sure you're comfortable as you come down in towards this pose. We're going to hold here for 3 to 4 minutes. And this pose can be quite a vulnerable pose. We can find when we work in towards our hips into our yin practice that lots of deep emotional feelings can come to the periphery, come towards the surface. And the reason for this is that we hold a lot of deep emotions in towards our hips. When we're stressed, we can find that we clench the knees together and clench the jaw. Therefore, if we're looking to release in towards the body, then maybe opening up the hips can find that release. Equally, maybe closing down the eyes might be hard in this pose as we start to open into the chest and into the heart. We spend our day looking at our laptops, searching on our phones, folding forward. That this pose is a great pose for opening up the heart, opening into the collarbones and opening into the hips. If you want to go deeper into this pose, and it's maybe more comforting, just taking the arms over the head. And we get a stretch in towards the lats and in towards the outside of the body. But again, it might be too much. And gently, if you want to, just taking the hands towards the belly. Just clasping the hands, just letting the fingers hold the hands into place. And it brings a bit of a less of a stretch in towards the side of the shoulders and into the heart. So just coming to wherever's comfortable for you. We've got about 2 more minutes left into this pose. You might find that the right or the left side is a little bit more open than the other, or it might feel open. But whichever sensations we're getting, if we can just sit and observe, we're getting deeper in towards our practice. Observing that monkey mind and checking in with ourselves just to see how we're feeling. Just seeing if we can feel that release. Sometimes it's like the body just suddenly lets go and we feel the hips just open that little bit deeper. Amazing. So we're going to slowly just bring ourselves out of the pose. We're just going to take the hands around the outsides of the knees and just gently bring the knees in towards each other. So we're just helping ourselves get into that pose and just holding here for a moment, maybe just releasing the pelvis slightly. It can be quite a deep hip opener, that one. So just really just starting to feel the sensations before we start to move the top part of the body. So we're going to slowly just move ourselves over to the left or the right hand side and just gently come off the block or the bolster that we have next to us. So we're just going to hold on the floor, just releasing down in towards the ground for a moment. So hips are stacked, our knees are stacked, shoulders are stacked, and just feeling that space. Again, maybe closing down the eyes. And just feeling into the body. Just taking that right hand or the left hand, whichever's the top hand, just gently bringing ourselves in towards a comfortable seated position. Amazing. So we're going to come in towards a forward fold. So getting deep in towards the hamstrings this time. We're taking the legs forward. So again, whichever variation you want to come into, we can have the legs slightly further apart. Again, as we have with our yin practice, we want that release. So maybe just giving the legs a little bit of a shape beforehand, just so we can find that release into the body. Any issues in towards this pose, or we feel that we can't move forward, it might be nice just to place a rolled up blanket just underneath the knees to give ourselves a little bit of height before we fold forward. Otherwise, if you have a bolster, maybe placing a bolster underneath, it can just work a little bit differently in towards the spine. So we want to find that release. For me, I like to take an inhale, just finding that length into the spine. Exhaling, we pull the chin in towards the chest and we slowly start to fold ourselves forward. So coming to wherever's comfortable for you. Again, if you want to, using your prop, just to place under the forehead, just to find that release. We feel that stretching towards the outside of the hamstrings and into the front. If you want to, finding that release through the back of the body as well, as we take the hands down and the palms face upwards. So we get that release in towards the spine, into the vertebrae, into the back of the body. We're holding here for about 3 to 4 minutes. So we want to get comfortable with the uncomfortable in our body. Feel that stretch in towards the back of the spine. I'd suggest if you have any issues into the lumbar spine or feeling any pain, and again, obviously feel free to just use the arms as a bit of leverage and using the chin to be tucked. We still get that stretch, we still get that space, but working with our Goldilocks and the Three Bears analogy, so we're working in towards that space that finds comfort with the uncomfortable, but allowing us to relax into the pose. If you want to go deeper, maybe taking the block away, lowering it onto a lower space, or moving the book around that you have. And just finding that release. Maybe it's walking the hands a bit further, just so gravity changes in towards the body a little bit differently. It might be that we start to feel it, the stretch deeper in towards the hips, or maybe into the knees. Learning to observe where it feels comfortable and uncomfortable, and what uncomfortable feels like in order for us to move, or if uncomfortable feels like pain, sharp piercing pain, which we need to move out of slowly, and recognize that that could be stretching deeper into the body, deeper into those joints that we want to. Perfect. We've got about another minute here into the pose. So use that space. Just taking a moment to recognize how the mind feels and how the breath feels. As we start to use into our yin practice, we're about 45 minutes in. So it might be that you start to feel yourself a little bit more relaxed. We're going to start to walk ourselves out of the pose. We're going to just bring the head up as last. We walk the hands back in towards us. Slowly releasing in towards the spine as we come up. Feeling those rushes, those sensations of energy running through those meridian lines. And just taking ourselves in towards that rebound with the legs out wide. So again, knees might be facing up towards the sky and just gently coming around from side to side. Moving through treacle, maybe we feel a little bit more open in towards those hips now. And just to finish off the practice, we're going to come in towards our spinal twists. So just coming down on towards our backs, similar to how we do into our yin practice. But this time, if you want to come deeper in towards the stretch, in towards the twist, it might be that you want to place the left foot down and the right foot over, so we've come in towards our cross legs. If you're coming in towards the cross legs, it might be we want to take the hips higher and the hips over towards the right side. So when we come in towards our twist, the shoulders and the hips are in line with each other. Knees come down to the ground, but if they don't, maybe you're placing a pillow or something underneath them just to give them a bit of height. Again, option to have the arms out wide or into cactus. And just gently coming down in towards the twist. So releasing into the body, and we gaze over towards the right hand side. And we're just going to hold here for 3 minutes. So just letting everything melt down in towards the mat. Maybe you want to close the eyes and just feel that twist into the body. We find that magical things start to happen as we melt in towards the mat. A gentle space starts to open in towards the mind and into the body. The yin practice is a lovely practice to find flexibility. It's also a lovely practice to work into later into the evening, into the late afternoon, as we want to, pardon me, just start to release and unwind in towards our body from a stressful day. Just using that breath just to close down through the body and through the mind. And then slowly we're going to come back in towards center, so gently just releasing ourselves. Just releasing the legs, taking the hips back into center. And this time we're going to come straight in towards the other side. So we're going to take our left leg over the right. Again, if you want to, just taking the hips slightly over towards the left side as we roll the legs over towards the right. If you want to, you're using a block or a pillow just to place under the knees, just so they find that twist and they're supported into the twist. Arms are parallel or into cactus towards the ground, and we're gazing over towards the left side of the room. So we find that comfort in towards the twist. And we just gently melt the back of the shoulders down towards the ground. Maybe closing down the eyes as we come in towards the final pose. Letting gravity just work its magic, just making us unwind into the body, in towards the ground. And just using that breath to just gently let go of any tension we have in the body. We've got about 30 more seconds into the pose, just really feel that release. And then slowly we're just going to bring ourselves back into centre, just unwinding the legs. Bring the knees back in centre. This time we're just going to take the knees together, knock them together, feet out towards the side. So just feeling that release through the side body. Feeling that release through the spine and in towards the hips. And then gently, whenever you're ready, we come in towards our final resting pose, our Savasana. So we take the legs out towards the front of the room. Feet are wide. Again, any issues into the lumbar spine, just keep the knees up towards the sky. And just gently coming into our Savasana. So just holding here, just releasing through the body. And just noticing if we feel any different from when we started. As the yin practice is more physical on the rebound, as in we notice the results of our flexibility. After a period of time of practicing, we notice the depth that we can observe and control our mind. But from this practice, maybe we just feel the sensations into muscles that we haven't stretched for a long time. So as we're practicing at home, feel free to stay into your savasana and just enjoy the quietness on the mat. However, if you want to, just starting to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Just start to take a few breaths into the body. I'm going to bring the knees in towards the chest. And then slowly just bring yourself in towards a comfortable seated position at the top of the mat. Wherever you come to. And just sitting here for a moment, just starting to feel the body. Feeling the mind and seeing whether there's any space, whether we feel a little bit more quiet. And towards the mind. Wherever you are, taking the hands into prayer in front of the heart. May the divine in me honour the divine in you. Namaste. Thank you for joining me for today's yin practice. I know it's slightly different to the practice that we have been doing. I'd love to hear what you thought about the practice. Obviously it's a lot slower, but it's getting deeper in towards the body and into the mind. So let me know how it is. Drop your comments into the comment box, but otherwise have a lovely week. Thank you.